Dunkaroos is the cookie you dunk for as much frosting as you want. So how do you do your Dunkaroos?
Hello, happy Monday everyone! Today I want to make an ice cream that I've made in the past, and I want to see if a few years of making ice cream has made it turn out a little bit better. But I am going to try a new ice cream base today. This is Jenny's Fantastic Ice Cream. And so we start with 4 teaspoons, that is, of cornstarch, and we add about a 1/4 cup of our heavy cream, or I'm sorry, our whole milk. We're just going to stir that and set it aside for a moment. So then in our saucepan, we add 2 cups of whole milk, 1 cup of heavy cream. I know that there's 1 cup left in there. 2/3 of a cup of white sugar, 2 tablespoons of corn syrup, and a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Now we are going to put that over medium heat and bring it to a boil, a full boil this time. So I think I failed to mention what I was making. I said I had made it before, but I didn't say what it was. This is going to be Dunkaroos Ice Cream. So Dunkaroos, if you're not familiar, was a snack from my childhood. It's basically cookies and buttercream icing, and you would dip the cookies into the icing and eat them. Definitely not a wholesome snack, but it was one that I enjoyed quite a bit. Okay, we are at a boil, so now let's set a timer for 4 minutes. So while we're boiling here, you do want to keep a very close eye, because depending on the size of your saucepan, you may experience a boil over, and then you've got a huge mess to clean up, and you've lost some of your ice cream base. So just keep a close eye on this during this 4 minutes. Now, if you do get close to a boil over, like I'm starting to here, just remove from the heat for a few seconds, and that'll let that settle down, and then you can put it right back on the heat. We're now 4 minutes into boiling. We will take that cornstarch slurry that we had and go ahead and pour it in. And it's very important to mix continuously here so that you don't end up with any cornstarch clumps. And we want to boil for about 2 more minutes. So that cornstarch, as we're boiling it, the starches expand and will help to thicken this mixture. You'll notice as you're whisking that it starts to feel thicker. You may even be able to tell in the size of the bubbles that are coming up from your boiling that it is getting thicker. And now 2 minutes in, kill the heat. We have 3 tablespoons of cream cheese. Now the recipe says to whisk this in a separate bowl before you add it back in or add it into the rest of the milk. But I think if we just whisk it thoroughly, we'll get there. And as we stir in the cream cheese, this would be a good time to add some vanilla bean paste or vanilla extract if you want. I'm doing about a teaspoon. And everything seems to be pretty well incorporated. I don't see any lumps or bumps or anything like that. We look to be pretty smooth. It is very, very thick, even thicker than when we make a custard. Let's see how much of a mess we make today. So this, having boiled, does need to cool at least to fridge temp. 8 hours probably in the fridge overnight would be good. And we want this to be as cold as possible before we start churning. So into the fridge. Okay, so I took the cheaty approach and did an ice bath for our ice cream base. So it is not actually the next morning, but our ice cream machine is chilled. That is extremely thick. I'm anxious to see how this turns out. In fact, look how much is still stuck in there. But we'll just use our good old rubber spatula. All right, and then we'll let this churn. I'm not entirely sure how long, since this is a new recipe, how long this will take to churn, but I'm guessing 30 minutes. Okay, we are starting to get close to soft serve, so it's time to think about what we're mixing in to make this Dunkaroos flavored. And you could go buy some packs of Dunkaroos and use that, but I don't know what they did in the 20 years since they had discontinued them, but they're not the same. They're kind of gross. So what I've found is actually very similar is to get some of these vanilla cupcake goldfish and a jar of buttercream icing. Or frosting. A jar of buttercream frosting. I have taken some of those goldfish and I have put them in the freezer. Anytime I'm dealing with a mix-in that could absorb liquid, so anything like a waffle cone or a graham cracker, anything like that, I like to freeze it first, just so that it doesn't get soggy. So we mix in our goldfish, and then I've put some of the buttercream frosting in a Ziploc bag, and we will just take our scissors and snip off a small corner. And I also have some rainbow sprinkles because there were sprinkles in Dunkaroos. So let's just add those. Hopefully remember that sprinkles are for winners, and you know what? You're all winners. Okay, so those goldfish have had a chance to mix through. So we will just take our buttercream, and because I don't want it to be completely integrated, I'm just going to squeeze it out of the bag and let it swirl in. Now that might be enough, but on this channel we go big or go home. So there's the rest of my buttercream frosting. That was probably half a cup, a third of a cup. We'll just let that go for a minute to break up any of the big chunks of frosting. And we'll clean the dasher, but we're not cleaning Dancer and Prancer. And now we scoop. So it still is really thick. And throw on a lid. Dunk for Dunkaroos. All right, Dunkaroos Ice Cream. That did set up very firmly. So you can see goldfish in there, you can see the sprinkles. You can't really see the buttercream, but that's fine. Let's try a bite. So this does taste a lot like what I remember Dunkaroos tasting like. You get the cookie, you get the frosting. There's a little bit of bite from the sprinkles because they did hold up. Now, because I don't know if it was because of the base or because of the buttercream, but this did set up quite firmly. It's still relatively hard, and when you take a bite, you do get a little bit of resistance from the buttercream. But overall, I think this was a good one. I don't think that this ice cream base was worth the effort, at least not for this flavor. It really turned out to be, it was basically pudding. I basically made vanilla pudding and then froze it. And again, thank you for stopping by. Hopefully we see you again next time. Have a great day. Bye.